everyone, and welcome to the book Refuge, and welcome to a video that has been I've been wanting to make for a while, but I just kept adding to it. And so as you can tell, this video is going to be Kindle Unlimited. If for some reason you don't know what that means, I want to kind of say first so that we weed out anyone who doesn't want to watch that. So Kindle Unlimited isn't exclusively about smutty erotica books, but it is a high percentage of what gets published on Kindle Unlimited. So Kindle Unlimited is if you have a Kindle or the Kindle app on your phone, you can pay $9.99 a month and read as many of these as you want. You can have 10 of them at a time, return them, get more whenever you want to. I generally, over the past 5 years, have went through different binge is what I would definitely call this, areas where I read different Kindle Unlimited, and I don't usually talk about them in my wrap-ups. However, last month, which that video just went up yesterday, I had 2 of them because they are on my favorite of the year list, and so then they make it. Because generally when I read Kindle Unlimited books, which are generally very sexy romances, there is sex, there is taboo situations, there is just dark romance, things that most people on my channel don't care to hear about, so I don't really talk about them there. So this is your warning, this is your heads up. I'm going to talk about quite a few. I think I have about 20 of them here that were all ones that I liked. In the past couple months, I've read about 50 of them, but weren't all great. Some of them I don't even finish them, or I skip through parts and they just didn't affect me, or I move along. So this is only going to be ones that I really liked, but because I don't just want to say each one needs a little bit of explaining behind it. And so what I'm going to do is for each book, I'll tell you what it is, obviously, what trope it falls into, and then what I liked and didn't like about it. Now, also know that all of these are either 4 or 5 stars, so I liked them. That doesn't mean I would suggest them to you. So please listen to, and also, I'm not going to go through trigger warnings for all of these because just by saying what the genre and stuff is, I think you'll probably know, except for 2 of them which have serious trigger warnings, and I'm going to tell you because I don't want anyone to get mad at me. You're about to watch a smutty video. I've made these before. I'm a romance girl here on Booktube. That is mostly what I read. So just know that. I don't want any complaining. Don't say anything. If you have anything mean to say, move along. I will delete you. Don't watch this video. Watch something else. I talk about Harry Potter all the time, or, other things. So, all right, we got that preface out of the way, and we have a lot of books to talk about. This is going to be a long video. So first up, I will start with my 2 favorite ones, which I was rambling about a bit the other day when I put up my November wrap-up. So the first one I want to talk about, and I actually purchased this book, is The Italian by TL Swan. So I read this on Kindle Unlimited, and I really liked it, and so I bought it. I have more TL Swan to talk about a little bit later because I went back to her after I read this because there's supposed to be a sequel to this, but she says so at the end that there will be, but I can't find any proof of it anywhere that it exists. And it really makes me mad because I want to read the sequel. So this is about Enrico and Olivia. Olivia is Australian and she is visiting Italy on a trip with her girlfriend. She's staying the night alone in Italy while her friend went somewhere else. I'm not going to hold this the whole time. I'll put it up here. It'll be my poster child. And they end up having kind of a one-night stand, which turns into a weekend-long stand where he asks her to come and see him again when she comes back through. And she agrees to do it because they have a really great chemistry, they have a really fun time together, and they move along. So she goes on to meet her friend, and when she's coming back through, she gets stopped at security, and you find out that someone put drugs in her bag. And so Enrico, he is a police officer, and so she calls him. And meanwhile, Enrico has lost his father and grandfather in an accident, which was purposeful, and his grandfather and father run the mob. And Enrico has to leave everything that he's known, the job that he loves, and become the head of this organization because they need a leader, or all the other mob bosses, criminal masterminds will come in and try to rip it away, and there's a lot of people depending on him. So the same day that Olivia calls, needing a little bit of help with the police to, you know, explain what happened to her, he's had his world fall apart. And so he isn't very nice to her. He calls her some names and sends her away because he's just like, I don't have time to deal with a stupid foreigner who didn't lock her bag and got drugs shoved in it. And that's harsh. It is harsh, but that's what happens. And 2 years later, Enrico finds a way to bring her back. He has a friend offer her a job and gets her back in his city, and he goes about wooing her. And they're amazing. They have a lot of chemistry. They fight hard. There's a lot of things Enrico's dealing with. And I've never read a book with a mob boss in it where the mob boss so clearly didn't want to do it. And I'm sure there's others. I know I don't read a lot of the mob stories. I ended up reading quite a few after this one, and this was by far my favorite. And there's just so many rules and feelings he feels like he needs to follow. And you know, he's the boss, though. He can change that. So anyway, so that's kind of the setup for it. Things that I liked. The conflict, very real, very legitimate. There's real danger. He's the head of a mob. There's real, you know, intercultural issues, different religions, family approval things. And they fight a lot, and I love their fights because he's a very domineering man. A lot of books in these romances are, you'll see that as a pattern. And Olivia just does not take it. And the only issues with that, to me, are because of the life that he lives. If she wants to be in his life, she does need to listen to him a little bit. Like, there's people trying to kill him. He's a mob boss. And she does that thing where she's just like, F you, I'm going to go places by myself. And it just makes me so mad because that's a trope that I just hate. Or that's a situation I just hate in these. But I do love that she's like, explain it to me instead of just telling me what I'm supposed to do, because I'm not going to do that. So anyway, this was amazing. Not really trigger warnings in this one, which I said I wasn't going to say, but I guess I am because I'm a responsible booktuber, so I'm going to tell you. So I loved it. It was so great. The next one we're talking about is Dark Notes by Pam Godwin. Holy Moses. I talked about this in my wrap up a little bit too. This one okay. Oh, also what this one fits into, there's not really a lot of like, I mean, it's a mob boss romance, so whatever. This one, however, I found because I was looking up age gap romances. And so this is an age gap. This is a teacher-student romance. And it's also taboo because she's only 17 when it starts. And the girl, Ivory, is in a very abusive relationship. And Emery helps her with it. I have never seen... he also is into BDSM. And I have never seen BDSM used in such a beautiful way before. And I just don't know how else to say it. Like, I've read a lot of these books, like, you know, there's like rough situations in them, but there's never usually the use of like safe word in it. And I really appreciated that because Emery sees a girl who this is the one with the trigger warning. She has been sexually assaulted by so many men. And she's at the point where she straight up just uses it to get what she wants. And not in the like callous way, in the, well, this is what I have to do kind of way. And Emery sees that and it makes him so mad. And he wants to give her power back. And he does. By giving her a safe word, by giving her rules and plans and help, he gives her this power back. And I know that nobody's going to take this seriously because it's a Kindle Unlimited book, but this book has some situations in it that, guys, I cried reading this book. And that Kindle Unlimited romances don't do that to me. And I cried so hard reading Dark Notes. Trigger warning also, harm to animals. I forgot about that. And then, yeah, child abuse, rape, and assault. And Emery gives her his power back. And I love it because he gives her a safe word and he respects it. And one of the things in the book, though, too, is like in other ones, there's a safe word, but nobody ever uses it because the girl always wants everything that he's doing to her. Well, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't. And just because you love the person and you do like having sex with them doesn't mean you want to do everything that they want to do. And I love that Emery is working so hard for her to have the power. And he's actually trying to find where her line is because he wants to prove that he'll respect it, which I love because so far everything they have done, she does want to do. And he's like, oh, I need to find a way to prove to you that you're safe with me. And finally, they find her line, which I wasn't expecting. Well, I was because I knew who she was. But for him, he isn't expecting it because it seems like such a normal thing to him. And when he is, going for it with her, she is like, no. And she says her safe word. And he's just like, what? For this? And he doesn't get angry at her and he doesn't freak out and throw a tantrum, Christian Grey. We all know that's unhealthy, but still, that's the example I use of, or you see in a book where the girl's like, no, but she's not using her safe word, so it's not a thing. Sorry that I'm like pretending that I know BDSM. I don't live this life. It's just in this book, it made it so clear to me how it's used and what it means. And it was so beautiful. Like, it was so beautiful because he was angry, but he wasn't angry at her. He was angry at the person that made her feel unsafe, that when he wanted to do it with her as a loving partner, she couldn't handle it. And guys, there's so much more. I'm not doing a dedicated review to that book. You can check out my Goodreads if you want to know more detail, but it was great. It's very dark. It's called Dark Notes for a reason. It's beautiful. I'm going to buy that one soon too because I want it. Moving along. All right, the next book I want to talk about is Confess by Z. Zavarelli. In this book, we have Lucian and we have, hold on, let me find her name. We have Lucian and we have Gypsy. And Gypsy is a con artist who, her and her sister were abused as a kid, and now they're kind of like heartbreakers. I don't know if you remember that old movie with Jennifer Love Hewitt and I can't remember who the other one is, who con men, and that's what she does. She cons men into giving her money, and she blackmails them and stuff like that. And she runs into Lucian, who is an attorney, and he takes it upon himself that he wants to correct her ways and rescue her. Interesting situation. Again, these are Kindle Unlimited. Things happen. And so he basically blackmails her into marrying him, or he's going to turn her into the police. And he goes about helping her with things and like disciplining her, and not in the BDSM way, like legit. You can't have your phone this week because you're not doing this. And like, it's so weird. I know it's weird. It's also an age gap. She's 24 and I think he's almost 40. But there's a lot of other stuff going on. Lucian never consummates their marriage with her for a long time in the book because that's not what it's about. He didn't marry this person to do that stuff to her. And, well, not do that stuff to her. He didn't marry her because he needed her for sex or anything. And there was a twist that I was not expecting in this book, and it was pretty great. So the trope of this one, this is an age gap. This is, that's basically it. It's an age gap, really dominating man. Gypsy was really fun. I also read the sequel to this, which I can't remember the name of right now because I didn't like it as much, but I really love Gypsy. And Lucian ended up crushing my soul because the twist involves him, and he broke my heart. He broke my heart, and I love him so much. So anyway, I love that. Next, I have Broken Vows and Broken Hope by Nicole Fox. This is a Bravta book. I ended up reading a lot of Nicole Fox as well. So this is a dark mafia romance. This is an arranged marriage. So we have Luca and Eve. And so they end up in an arranged marriage together. They need to produce an heir. It's kind of a forced, it's like Romeo and Juliet, but like opposite. So the families hate each other and they have an arranged marriage, and then they need to produce an heir so that they solidify this peace between their families. And Eve gets a rough go of things at the start because Luca and his dad are eating at her restaurant where she's the cook, and they insult her. And she kind of like screams in their face and causes a problem. And it almost causes that family to put a hit out on her because she insulted them in a restaurant, which is a little extreme, whatever. So they end up in an arranged marriage, and that's the main part of book 1. And then book 2, there's a totally like different situation that happens, and it was great. So these books, I really liked how the romance built. I liked how they really wanted to keep things kind of like clinical, like he wasn't going to fall in love with his wife because she's still the enemy, but that doesn't always work. And Luca is a little more of like, he stays a jerk kind of the whole time to me. Like, he softens a little bit for Eve, but he pretty much stays an asshole the whole time. But I really liked the plot of this. This was, again, I read a lot of Mafia romance, and I liked the background stuff, how it got pulled to the front in the second one. And I liked that everything was set up pretty good. Like, all of those beats were like started. Whereas in some other ones I've read, they really focus on the romance in the beginning. And then it's like, oh, I need some plot, and that stuff gets thrown at you. But this was all like set out really well, and I really liked it. So Broken Vows and Broken Hope by Nicole. So another one I read Priest by Simone. I don't know why I gave this a try, but I loved it. I didn't like Simone's Lesson in Thorns or the sequel, I didn't like those books, but I had heard about this one, and this has, I wouldn't call them trigger warnings, but I would just say, like, if you love your Catholic faith, like, be careful. I'm not a Catholic, and I feel like the book wasn't directly disrespectful to the religion. It's a certain person in the religion who is going through some struggles, okay? So, and the author, she explains things really well too, because she was raised Catholic. So I'll leave that to her, Sierra. But this is about, his name is Tyler, and he's been a priest for not a terrible amount of time. He's not super old. And there's this woman who keeps coming in for confession, and she's really sexy and beautiful, and he really likes her, and they have a lot of chemistry, and she confesses her sexual sins to him, and things kind of sort of start happening. So, like, it's just so good, because the things Tyler is struggling with, as he's a priest with a vow of celibacy, and he broke it for this girl, and he's like, should I pursue this woman who I just have such strong feelings for, and she loves me, or am I turning away from God? Am I forsaking everything if I leave this to love her? And it's really interesting too, because like, his whole family, they don't get how he can be a priest. They don't understand it. And he, he just struggles with his faith in it. And he struggles with the kind of feelings that he has and the kind of person that he thinks that he's turning into. And I don't know. But it was really sexy, and I really liked it. And it was awesome. And there's a novella after it called Midnight Mass, which is about their first year of marriage together, and I loved it. And then there is, it's a companion, but you know how these romances go. It's actually a sequel that's called Sinner, that is about his brother and a girl who's going to be becoming a nun soon. And they were all really good. And this is a mix. Like, this isn't really dark. The sex is a little dark maybe, but the story is not that dark. It seems dark. Like it would be. When I heard about it, I thought it was dark, but it actually ended up being pretty fun. Just, it's very guilt-ridden because he feels guilty the whole time, obviously. Next, let's talk really quickly about Cold Queen by Webster. This is the beginning of this series that a bunch of authors are doing together, like 20 of them, that are all going to be like twisted fairy tale retellings. Now this one, Cold Queen, is the first one. And it's by K. Webster, and it is an Elsa and Anna twisted tale. So we have this snow queen, basically an ice queen, who's sick. She's dying. And there is this, I don't know how to describe him, but he has this different kind of power that's like kind of like a fire power. And he comes to her castle, and he is going to marry someone. He's going to marry either her or her sister. And she decides to be the one to marry him because she's like about to die anyway. And it's really hard to set it up. So these two, this is a hate to love. This is very dark. There is cannibalism. There is the killing of babies. And there is rape in here. All from the bad guys. Like, I mean, there's this clan of people that the reason they need to get married is they need to unite against this clan. And when they go to war against them, it's horrific. So, but I love this. I loved what the plot of it was. I love that it was an Anna and Elsa kind of twisted tale. And like, but it's good. It was so good. I didn't end up liking the other book in this series, which was a Hook and Tinkerbell one. I didn't really like it, but I am interested in some of the others because they were doing a ton of different fairy tales, and some of them have to win. So Cold Queen by K. Webster, really good. All right, last dark one we're going to talk about here. Let me check. Yes. Okay. This has some trigger warnings, and it was very disturbing, and I'm not sorry I read it because it was fascinating, but I had like a pit in my stomach the whole time I was reading it, and that is the Twist Me trilogy by Anna Zares. Okay, so much taboo in this book, guys, like, but it was like watching a train wreck, and wow. So this is about a girl. Hold on, let me pull it up here. I have my Goodreads up because I read so many of these, and I forget the names, even though I remember the stories really clear. It just happens. So they call it new adult was the thing. This is definitely an adult, but it's new adult because our main character starts this as 18, and this is Nora, and she meets this man, Julian, at a club. It's for her, like, it was a under 21 club, and she's there, and she meets this guy, and they have a really intense meeting. And then she graduates high school, and she sees him in the back when she graduates. And then 2 months later, she's on a date with a really nice boy. He's the high school quarterback, and they're on a date, and they're walking through a park, and he kisses her, and all of a sudden, he's on the ground bleeding. And Julian kidnaps her. Yes, this is a kidnap romance. Not a romance. A kidnap erotic novel, because it's not a romance in the beginning, okay? This is bad. And again, I don't know why I was reading this. This is probably the darkest trilogy I've ever read. Like, for me, I don't want to go darker than this. I don't know why I kept on because you just keep waiting for there to be like something good about this guy. Like, really, you just keep looking for, he can't really be doing this to an 18-year-old girl, because not only does he kidnap her, he takes her to his private island, and she wakes up and she's not restrained or tied down or whatever, but she's on a private island with only Julian and his housekeeper and a private plane, and it's the only way in and out, and he's the one who flies it, so there's not even a pilot or anything. And he systematically rapes this girl every day for at least a year. He's gone sometimes, but when he's there, it's every day. And it's rape, guys. It is. The reason I'm even bringing it up, because I read the whole trilogy and I was fascinated by it, is I was, in the beginning, I'm kind of like, author, how are you going to make this okay, right? I was like, where's it going? Because I read the premise and I was fascinated by it, because I was like, surely There's like a reason. Like, is he protecting her from something? Is he kidnapping her because her parents did something bad? You know, usually there's a reason why the kidnapping happens, but no. He saw her and he wanted her and he took her. And he did it because he is an arms dealer, obviously illegally, makes a crap ton of money, and he can't date normally. Because if he did, the bad people would try to kidnap her. And so he's like, well, I like this girl and I want to sleep with her, so let me just kidnap her. And it was a train wreck, but I loved it. And I feel bad. Like, it makes me feel like I'm not ashamed of books I've read, guys. Really. That's why we're making this video. But this one, the author puts on Goodreads. She's like, this is not a traditional romance. It contains disturbing subject matter, including things of questionable consent, Stockholm Syndrome, as well as graphic content. The author neither endorses nor condones this type of behavior. But anyway, okay. Well, I'll give you like why I kept reading it. So I kept reading it because I kept waiting for her to finally have some power in the situation. And she does to some degree, but he is always threatening her for everything. First, he threatens her parents. First, he punishes her whenever she's not perfectly happy with what's going on. Stockholm Syndrome is a thing. Like, you think Beauty and the Beast is Stockholm Syndrome, guys? Try reading the Twist Me trilogy. And all the people who just let him do it, it's really hard to. So eventually, they end up getting married when she's 19 and he's 30. It could be worse, but it's not worse. This is bad. And he lets his parents know he has her, but there's nothing they can do. And when he wants to marry her, because he's like, I'm gonna marry you. We're gonna do that. She's like, you don't have to marry me. I'm into this at this point. I know I can't escape you. She literally says that so many times. I know I can't get away from you, so I'm just trying to enjoy my life, is what kind of the end of the first book, the beginning of the second book, that's her mindset. And so he's like, you're still thinking about that boy you kissed before. Oh my gosh. And she's like, no, I'm 19. We don't have to get married. It's fine. I'm not going to leave you. He's like, I can have him killed. And he calls his guys and is like, I'm going to have this kid killed if you won't marry me. So she literally has to marry him. And it was a train wreck, but whatever. They both almost die a couple times. He saves her life even though he's kidnapped her. And just eventually she literally is like, you did kidnap me, but now I love you and you've twisted my mind so much I can't live without you. So let's just do it. Why would I try to get away? And anyway, I'm just telling you guys, I ended up liking this series because it's complete rape fantasy, guys. It is. I'm trying to find other words to describe it, but especially the first book, it's completely rape fantasy. It's the exact opposite of Dark Notes, where the woman has power. She doesn't get a safe word. She doesn't get to say no. She's his slave. She's his prisoner. And for me, it ended up being about how this woman makes the best of this and how she's still not broken, even though she can't escape. But there you go. So, all right, let's talk about happy stuff, guys. I'm sorry. All right, you probably all hate me now for the books I read. Let's talk about some happy books. So, my main favorite books I read, this is Wrong and Right by Janet Aston. So, these were our age gap romances. Almost all of Anna's books are. I think I have another of hers to talk about too. But Jana, not Anna. The one I liked the most was Right, but the first one is Wrong. So the first one is Wrong, and it's about this girl who is looking to lose her virginity, which is so cliche. She's 22, 23, and she runs into this really hot guy, and I can't remember what the situation is. But he's super hot, and then it's her gynecologist. And when she's getting her exam, she ends up having a little too much fun while the doctor is checking things out. And it's horribly embarrassing. But he ends up really liking her. He's older, and he's amazing. But he's her doctor, and it's a little weird, but they have this really cute relationship because he agrees to take her virginity, but he's like, but we're not gonna date, but I don't want you to sleep with this. One of those where like, I'm gonna be the one to do it. But it was funny. Like, Janet Aston's books are hilarious. I've read every book she's written. These are just my favorite. And it's really cute, and I love it. And so that one was okay. It was okay. But we get introduced to Everly in this book. See, I remember her name. Her name's Everly. Which is also weird because Everly is my niece's name, so I always joke that like, it's kind of creepy that one of the cutest ones I read. So Everly is Chloe, I think her name is her friend. And she's that like manic pixie dream girl best friend who was like trying to get her friends set up with people all the time and it never worked. Well, Everly has been in love with her brother's best friend for 10 years. And this is also an age gap. Because he's like 10 years older than her, and he's a professor at her college, and like they always like, she has been Operation Get in His Pants for like 6 months, and she's really putting it down. And it's actually bad. Like, she's walked over into stalker territory. She got a key to his apartment, showed up at his apartment, and was in his bed. And that was the final straw. So we just get like flashbacks of this. We're not living during that time. So the way this starts is that after that happened, like, he basically needs a restraining order. He doesn't get one. I would have got one. His older brother, who's 4 years older than him, so it's even bigger age gap, he tells Everly, his name is Sawyer, he's like, why are you going after my brother? Like, he's not the one for you. I'm the one for you, Everly. And so Sawyer goes about wooing Everly. And first, she's just pissed off. She's like, no, I'm supposed to be with your brother. Like, he's the one for me. All these things, which clearly is not. And Sawyer, bless his heart, he convinces her. And that's what it's about. And it's called Right. These are all very short, by the way. All of her books are like 240, which is not fast. I actually own Right because I loved it so much, but it's over there and I don't want to go grab it. So I really loved Right and Wrong. They were so funny. They were age gap. They were adorable. They're not a creepy age gap. All the girls are like 24, 25. It's just Sawyer, I think, is like, well, no, she's 22 because she's still in college. He's like 36. And in the other one, I think she's like 24 and he's like 38. So not like, it's still a big age gap, but it's not the same kind of like taboo one where they're a child or anything. You know, it's not. It was so fun. The other one that was really fun is Before I Ever Met You by Karina Halle. And this is an age gap that I just loved how the story was put together. So this one is about, it's her dad's best friend and business partner. And he's just kind of left a pretty bad marriage where she wanted to have kids so much so that he got a vasectomy, and then she had an affair and got pregnant with someone else and is leaving him for that man. And it is really sad, and you feel really bad for him because that lady is a brat. And so this girl, she has a son, and let me see, here we go. Before I Ever Met You. And this is a pretty big age gap too. I believe he is like 38 or 4. No, I believe he is 40 and she's like 24. So it's a pretty big one. But it's great, but it's a hard one because parents are friends. That's always awkward. And she works for him now. And this is kind of her second chance. She was a wild child. She has a child because she was a wild child. And she has really great chemistry with him, and they just need to be careful because there's a lot at risk, relationships that are just getting healed, and she was in an abusive relationship previously, and she's scared to let someone into her life, into her son's life, and someone who is her dad's friend, and she doesn't want to mess up her relationship with her dad now that it's finally getting healed. And I really loved this one. There is some great humor in it and some good fun times, and I really liked it. So yeah, I loved it. All right, what else we got? Okay, the last one I'm going to talk about is The Nordic Royals by Karina Halle. And so same author as the last one, and there's 4 of these that I read. There's the Swedish Prince, the Wild Heir, the Nordic King, and the Royal Rogue. And so the Nordic King is an age gap about a king who had a really crappy wife, and he has 2 girls, and he gets a nanny for them, and they end up falling for each other. Otherwise, the Swedish Prince, the Wild Heir, and the Royal Rogue, they're not age gaps. One of them is an arranged marriage, which is the Wild Heir. One of them is kind of a insta-love, that's the Swedish Prince. And then the Royal Rogue is kind of a spin-off from the Nordic King. So all of these royals, they know each other, and a couple of them are commoners marrying someone else. The arranged marriage is a prince and a princess, and I'm not going to go into detail with each one of these because this now is a super long video here, but they were all pretty funny. They were really adorable, and they have their modern day prince and princesses of like the Norwegian and Swedish variety, and I really liked them. They were fun. I read them all pretty quick. Karina, they were all pretty like shorter books, and I just had a great time with them. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking now. I have more I could talk about, but that's enough. Let me know if you like this, if you want more of these. I will make more of them. I read tons of these. But yeah, these are the ones that were my favorites or like really affected me. And yeah, let me know if you've read any of these, or if any of these you have suggestions based off of these. I would love to know. I make new videos every Monday and Thursday and Saturdays and other days. I should really just stop saying what day I make videos on because I do it all the time. Thank you so much for watching, and